Hi, everybody. This is Ashley from the Mountain Park Library branch, and this program called Teens in Action is brought to you by Gwinnett County Public Library. We are super excited to have Angelina from Amnesty International here with us today.
Like Ashley said, I'm Angelina, and I am the organizer for Amnesty International USA, and I organize in the state of Georgia, along with other states.
Mm-hmm. So the reason why we're calling today's program Teens in Action is because we want everyone to know that whether you're an adult or a teen, you can start getting involved in your community whenever you want to. And so Amnesty International is great with all the campaigns and things they do for civil rights. And so we wanted to bring Angelina on to talk to you guys a little bit about that.
So everyone, a little bit about Amnesty International USA is that we're the world's largest grassroots human rights organization with over 7 million members in over 150 countries. And we're funded by individual supporters. And an important thing to note is that we're member-led. And so a lot of all the work that we do and everything that we do within the organization, it is led by our members and our supporters. Amnesty's mission is to conduct research and generate action to prevent and end grave abuses of human rights and to demand justice for those whose rights have been violated. And we take great pride in our research. Our research is thorough, and we make sure that when we're researching or working with certain communities, we obtain their permission and we get to assess the necessities of that particular community and generate our report based on our findings. And we are independent of any government, political faction, ideology, economic interest, or religious creed. So we are, in short, we're a non-governmental organization, and our focus is specifically defending human rights globally. In addition to what I just said, we monitor conditions around the world. International is in our name, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we do locally, but we also do local work, which in my personal opinion is my favorite thing to do. I think it's important to start locally and work from there. Like I said, we research human rights violations, we publish reports and issue alerts, and we mobilize individuals and networks to take action. And so that includes the youth, and activists and people in general to take action for human rights. Our priority campaigns, which go hand in hand with some of the issues that Georgia is experiencing. So our priority campaigns right now are ending gun violence and welcoming refugees and asylum seekers, so refugee rights and migrant rights. And as we're fully aware of some of the horrific things that have been going on, whether within the state of Georgia or just the USA at large, around gun violence, this is a campaign that's near and dear to me, specifically in Georgia, because it is an epidemic that's going on, and youth are key to making a difference and bringing change to this issue. It's an issue that affects everyone, specifically Black and Brown communities. And so it's important that we come together and we bring an end to senseless crimes. And then our second one is in the name, welcoming refugees and asylum seekers. As an immigrant myself, this is also a campaign that's near and dear to my heart. It affects all of us nationwide. Each state is affected by our immigrant laws, our migrant laws, and things of that sort. Anyways, I will stop there, Ashley, in case you have any questions or anything that you want me to expand on so far.
I was just going to say the same thing that like we see all of this stuff in the news on such a grand scale on CNN, on all the news outlets. And a lot of times people forget that it's not just affecting the people we see on TV or nameless faces. It's affecting you guys, the teens right now who are going to school and are maybe encountering this in your own lives right now.
Yeah, no, and you're 100% right. I think it's simple. We need smarter gun laws, but it's a lot when we're thinking about like who it affects, it's a lot more intricate and a lot more complex. And then we can talk more about how COVID-19 affected gun violence in the U.S. Like it's just to gear it back to the youth and what the youth can do. I'll tell you guys a little bit more about the work that I do with Amnesty. I work specifically with youth groups, student groups, and then I work with local groups, which are essentially very similar to youth groups. They're just not in school or they're non-youth. And one of my favorite things, I love working with local community groups, but I love particularly working with youth groups because each group that I work with has so many ideas, and even myself as a staff organizer, I feel like I get a lot of my ideas from the student groups that I work with, and I think that the neat thing about being a youth activist or just being involved is that you're able to do with it whatever it is that you want. So I say that to say, like, if you're into art, you can make art is a form of activism, right? If you're interested in science, that's dope too. Like you can incorporate science into activism. If you're interested in math, my major in college was Italian studies, and I ended up in this field. So if you're really good in social media, which is I am not good in social media at all, you can incorporate that into your activism. Activism welcomes everyone, welcomes all skills, welcomes all ideas. There is a space for everyone in activism. And so I think that the youth have a really big advantage because they're and not to say that everyone else doesn't, but based on my experience, they're really able to like think outside the box, and they're able to like keep up with trends. And just generally speaking, nowadays, like you need to be able to be up to date in order to be like in order to make whatever it is that you're passionate about relevant to whatever's out there.
Yeah, I did want to touch on the concepts going around about what it means to be an activist versus what it means to be an ally, because they're together, but it's just like, I think for the most part, we all kind of understand what an activist is, right? It's someone who advocates for a certain cause, like usually to try and further political or social change, you know,
Right.
and care about this issue for like a greater good. But especially in the recent years and with all the prominence of certain movements going on, the term ally has been like really expanded. It seems that ally is often used to describe someone who is an activist for a cause, for kind of like a marginalized group that they might not directly be a part of. Because I see a lot of people posting on social media like ally, Black Lives Matter, or Trans Life Matter, you know. And so I just wanted, I guess, like, you can be an activist for a group you're a part of, but you can also be an ally for a different cause as well. Right?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, I think for me, and just speaking on a personal level, it's difficult to talk about, because at the end of the day, they're labels, and particularly working with youth. So until recently, I honestly did not call myself an activist, but that's because I didn't know the language behind it. For me, it was just natural. Like if I saw something that didn't sit well with me, then I would either become a part of that group and I will fight for that. But I never really labeled myself as an activist, because for me, I feel like, in my opinion, it's sometimes it kind of makes it like unattainable. Like you need to, in order for you to be an activist, you need to have accomplished this, and you need to have you need to have mobilized X amount of people. But at the end of the day, like, you know, activism looks different for different folks, right?
Yeah.
In
Exactly
terms of
what you said about art and everything can be
right,
activism. Yeah.
right. And so, I mean, you can either be at the forefront of a march, or you can be using your art in a different type of way, right? And I think that what I mentioned earlier, there's a place for everyone in activism. Like you, I'm an extrovert, so you'll probably see me like in the middle of all of that, right? But then you have folks that like to work behind the scenes, and that's great too. We need everyone. In terms of allyship, I mean, I have mixed feelings about that word. I mean, Ashley, I would love to hear from you. What do you think about it?
Yes, the other term we've been hearing a lot, which is performative allyship, right? So just touching on it, just because I think it's interesting to bring up. It's an aside, but really, like, if you do decide that a cause is passionate to you, but you might not be directly affected by that thing, of course, it's good for you to be there and support and do all the things that we're going to talk about. But I wanted to go over a little bit about performative allyship because it's something that I've noticed definitely in recent years or recently with people who want to support people, but they end up taking center stage while they do it, right? Right. So it's I was just going to say a little bit about that in terms of, like, if you decide to be an ally for a cause, you need to be listening to that group. Like, I know personally, for example, for me at least, when all the protests and things were going on and people are posting like the videos, just no trigger warning, no nothing on social media, posting these videos of violence. Like, I don't think people who are passionate and realize that that's also very triggering for people who have experienced that trauma. So, like, for me, that's one thing. Like, if you're going to be an ally and placing someone in their shoes, you know, you need to be aware of those types of things and make sure you're listening and not just being the loudest voice.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And like you said, it's become a little bit more visible, especially in recent times. But I think what you said is key, is listening with with any type of work that you do. If you're working with a community or if you're working with a new client, like, in order for you to get to like either the root of what they want, what they need, you need to listen, right? But yeah, no, I agree with you. Some folks take the center stage. And I mean, just to link it back to activism or to grassroots activism, I just went to a gun violence prevention conference. They said something powerful. I mean, I'm definitely going to butcher it, but they were basically saying, like, the communities most affected by these issues should be in the forefront, right? They have the solution. They should be the ones that we listen to, not just someone that, like, takes on that, they feel the need to take on that issue, and then we're not even listening to the folks on the ground. So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Cool. Yeah, that was just my piece about. I thought it was something interesting that we could talk about.
Yeah, I know it's difficult because I'm like, how do you keep it professional, but then at the same time, like, say what it really is.
Yeah. And like, for me, it's like, I definitely have different things that I'm passionate about, but that I'm not directly a part of. And like, sometimes I think everybody does it, you know, like on a subconscious level, they get really passionate, but then like, I'll have that person who's like, well, you know, this is actually my point of view as someone who's living that truth. And you learn something from that, you know?
Right. So. And you need to like also be able to know when to step up and step down.
Yes.
And then on top of like what you just mentioned earlier in terms of social media, I believe in the power of social media. That's how we're able to share information and stuff like that. But then I think you need to take it a step further. Like, are you calling your senators? Like, what, like, aside from sharing it, like, what are you bringing to the table that's going to dismantle the system, right? Aside from just like sharing videos that can be traumatic for many people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think that is a good transition so let's say you do want to get involved and you have an issue that is important to you, but like, you don't know where to start. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. As an organizer, I mean, even now, we're really in the state of Georgia, Amnesty, we want to get involved with, well, ending gun violence is already our priority campaign, right? But in order for you to like really expand that work, it's like what we were talking about. We need to talk to the communities that and the communities and the organizations that are actually like doing the work. So now, and I'm saying this is because I just moved to Georgia. I'm originally from New York City. So I'm still learning a lot about the state, a lot about different communities. And so I'm starting from scratch. And so in similar, let's say that there's a student or someone, a youth activist wants to take action, I would say, as simple as it is, Google it, right? So Google so let's say you're interested in gun violence. What are the community organizations that I can research and get in contact with and ask them how I can take action? Another thing, if they're attending high school or if they're in college, maybe there's like a teacher and a professor that they can find that are also interested in that particular issue. I know that I work with a lot of college students that they find out about Amnesty through their human rights department or whatever the case may be. But I think that your safe bet is to research organizations, and it's so easy. I mean, if you have accessibility to the internet, to technology, but I've had so many folks just hit me up and say, hey, I just Googled human rights org and it gave me your contact information. So something as simple as that is a way to get started.
I agree. That's how I found Amnesty International as well, just that. And I did have some other things on here, like for finding out that, like you said, school, even just starting in a school setting, you're going to find people who probably feel the same way that you do, or, friends that you talk to about these things. You can see if there's a club that fits that, or try and start your own club at school as well. Those local organizations. And then I wanted to talk to you about your writing campaigns that you guys have.
Okay. Yeah, so we have our largest annual campaign, which is called Write for Rights. And it generally, if it doesn't change this year, but it generally runs from the beginning of October to the end of January. And each year they seem to have different like focuses. So like, for example, for the year, not this past campaign, the year before, we had Write for Rights that focused on youth activists, right? Or youth that were affected by human rights violations. So we featured different folks. I believe, I'm not going to say what country it was, but there was I don't remember. There was a youth activist that got incarcerated for not wearing her hijab. And her standing up for like her right to not want to wear it. Or it can be different things. If it's not that they're incarcerated, or let's say that someone like went missing, or someone died due to like a human right violation, either by the government or just something that happened, we write letters to that particular government, either to free these people from prisons, or to find justice for the folks that have been murdered, or the folks that are missing. So we're trying to find answers as to where they can be. So in that particular year, we featured, I believe, 9 or 10 youth cases. But this year, I really enjoyed it because, like I mentioned earlier in the call, I'm a big advocate for local activism. I believe my background is in international development and all that great stuff, but I believe that we should really get started in our backyards, right? So this year we featured a person that was affected by gun violence. And that was a pretty great outcome. We had folks write letters to find justice for her. And in that particular case, I believe she was standing outside of a gas station because it was during right now, like the COVID pandemic. And she ended up being just being in the way of some crossfires, and so there wasn't much follow-up from police enforcement, and she didn't get much justice when it came to that. And so we were writing letters to someone to get her funded. This is what we were talking about, like gun violence being such a complex issue, like in terms of healthcare, in terms of like so many things, right? So we were trying to get her compensated for that, and then we had different cases around the globe that we feature, and then we write letters.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
So I have like a whole separate like training for nonviolent direct action, because it's so like it's such a huge topic of conversation, especially in the recent years with different protests and things that have taken place during certain protests. So what does direct action mean? It means that we take collective actions to change our circumstances without handing our power to a middle person. So not the same as getting arrested, right? There is a smart way to take action, everyone. Please remember that. While sometimes getting arrested can amplify your message or is strategically necessary to achieve your goal, it isn't the point of direct action. It's not civil disobedience. Civil disobedience is a specific form of direct action that involves intentionally violating a law because that law is unjust. It's the point of the action. With other kinds of direct actions, laws may be broken, but the law being broken isn't the point. So nonviolent direct action is a way for you to take action, but obviously is in the word nonviolent. There's different ways that you can do that. If you go to the next slide.
Okay.
So what are some examples of nonviolent direct action? So it's a banner hang. So basically a banner hang or a banner drop is, if you guys have ever driven in the highway, you see some folks have posted a banner there, whatever the banner is. As some folks do it in their college campuses, they can do it in your lawn as well. Like if you have a house, you can do the banner drop from your house. So it's basically a large banner that demonstrates a particular message that you're trying to get across. And those are pretty popular. What I will say about banner hangs or banner drops, definitely be smart about it, right? So when I mentioned the highway, it's important that when you're doing these banner drops, one, you have not just yourself, but another person there with you for many reasons, for safety reasons. We've all seen the news about police brutality, just to say it plainly. So it's important to always have someone there with you, just in case anything goes down. So let's say that you're doing a banner drop and you don't have the right, what is the word for that? You don't have the permit to do a banner drop, right? So in like a highway, and you get arrested, right? No one will know you got arrested unless you have someone there or unless you like do a phone call, right? Also, banner drops, if you decide to do it in a highway, they can be pretty dangerous, right? So you want to make sure that you have enough support of folks to get you to doing the action that you want to do. Creative petition delivery. So recently, Amnesty, we just did a video petition, and we were doing this for Biden's 100 days within office, and we're asking him to free all peoples from ICE detention centers. And so we had our youth activists create different videos about what that meant for them and for their community, and asking Biden again to free families and peoples from ICE detention centers. Petitions are pretty common, pretty traditional when it comes to asking the government or anyone to bring change. That's why it's key the word creative is important, because you can sign a paper, that's great and that's fine, but if you can get creative, and that's where your different skills comes in. So if you're a videographer, have fun with the video petition. If you are someone that's into art, like, you can make a masterpiece and make that your petition, right? So the point of this is to get as creative as possible. A flash mob is an unrehearsed, spontaneous, contagious, and dispersed mass action. So it's a powerful tactic for political mass actions on short notice. And so that's basically you showing up somewhere with a whole bunch of folks, and again, getting as creative as possible. The image that I have before me is like a whole bunch of folks with different pillowcases with feathers, right? So you want to make an impact. You want folks to see what it is that you're doing, and then you want to make sure that you get your point across. And like I mentioned before, it's important for you to keep in mind what the point of this action is, right? It's not the actual, like, the flash mob or the actual petition. That's great, but the point is to, for example, end gun violence or free families from ICE detention centers. And then I can talk a little bit more about these other things, which is like human banners, guerrilla projection, image theater, all that good stuff. The important thing of this is just to keep in mind, folks take interest in things that directly affect them, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, right? And it can even be like, my friend is affected by this, right? And so then my friend, now that issue affects me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one, find something that you're passionate about, because at the end of the day, your passion's what's gonna keep you going. And then two, make sure that you assess the skills that you have, and you know your strengths and what you can bring to this particular action, and make it stronger, and then stick to those things. And then the third thing I would also say, like, have fun with it, right? Obviously, these are heavy, serious matters that we're taking action against. But yeah, I would definitely say have fun with it, especially because a lot of these battles are long-term battles. You don't want to burn out. You want to make sure that you're having fun along the way.
For people who want to go to these public spaces and do things or participate in peaceful protest, I kind of wanted to go over safety for those things if you decide to do those. So like you're saying with the banner hang, if you're ever going to protest or do an event in a public space, you need to let people know where you're going. So so that even if you go with certain people, like if you can tell your mom, I hopefully I'll be back by this time or whatever, so they know where you are, because things do happen, you know. I do feel like there's more safety in numbers if you go to something with people, and make sure that you guys have ground rules, that you're not going to be throwing stuff at the police or anything like that. Make sure the people you're with, you know, are going to keep level heads and have some ground rules associated with that, I think. Do you have any other points?
I mean, I think just to go off of that, I understand the passion that goes behind it. I understand the excitement that sometimes happen when you're with a large group of people and you guys are all rallying and fighting for the same thing, and then one thing leads to another. I think it's important, especially as people of color that are taking place in that are a part of these actions, you know, realizing like the resources that you have, right? So if you were to get arrested, who's going to bail you out? Like, at the end of the day, we know the system that we're working with. Like, if something were to happen to you, like, how would that affect your family, right? And so even though these are boring things that sometimes we don't want to talk about, we're like, well, but that's how change comes. At the end of the day, like, you don't want to like further inflict more pain in your community. If you were to get arrested or if something were to happen to you, these are definitely things to keep in mind. And I can use some examples. Recently, I was lucky enough to join one of Black Lives Matter's meetings, right? And they were talking about what happened on January 6th, right, at the Capitol. And they were saying, don't go out there, right? Don't, like, if you are for this for this cause, don't, because we won't have a way to get to you, right? Because there's barricades, there's like a lot of things going on that we don't want you to like be a part of, right? Because it's going to be more difficult for you. So just being smart about it.
Yeah. And then I also said, have an action plan and an exit strategy in case something like that. Know what your potential exits are. Like keep all that in mind.
100%.
Oh, I actually took your guys' introduction to human rights thing, and it was talking about using social media, but using it responsibly as well in terms of like what you post.
We all know how impactful social media is, and we know like words are impactful, right? So another example that I would use, like when educating folks on social media, again, we get passionate and we want, I'm a reactive person, right? Thankfully, throughout the years, I've become less reactive, right? But that doesn't serve a healthy environment if it's like, if the conversation is led by hate, right? So know when to leave a conversation, right? Because at the end of the day, it's just, remember the point of everything, right? The point is for you to either end XY or for you to have something done, right? So again, just leading with that point in mind would be essential.
Yeah. And I think that also ties into the point about mental health. If you're spending your energy online fighting trolls on the internet, you're not going to have any time left for yourself to like step back from that, you know?
So. Right. And it's like, and yeah, it's, at the end of the day, like it's just like I mentioned before, I love local work, but with local work comes personal work as well, right? Like what is that serving you? Like, is that putting you in a place where you can further the work, or is that putting you in a place where like you no longer want to be a part of the work, or you know, it's tarnishing like your ideas of the work. So again, it starts with yourself, then it goes with the community, and then we can think broader.
Like you said, taking time mentally, like fighting for a cause, but also knowing when to take a step back and take care of yourself. And mentally, emotionally, if you're not feeling well, you might need to take a step back. Even if there is an event that you're supposed to be a part of, if you know you're not in a good place, like it's okay for you to take a step back and do some things that know what relaxes you and helps you de-stress, so that you can have those activities and those hobbies that you can go to, whether that's meditating or just talking with a friend, you know, I know I like to do like hands-on kind of like crafts activities when I get really stressed out. So that's one thing that I do. Do you have any self-care routines that you use, Angelina?
Lordy, Ashley. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you. I mean, I think it's important again that we do that self-work, right? You will not be serving anyone if you are burnt out, and it's easy to get burnt out in any types of human rights work, especially when it's so personal, right? So it's definitely important to take care of yourself. And I know, like, you know, maybe the argument would be like, well, that's easy for you to say. This isn't like, you know, it's not affecting you. So then I will say the power is in numbers, right? So make sure that you have a good group of people that are doing the work with you. So when you need to tap out and they need to step up, then you guys take turns. But for me, what I do for self-care is I don't go on social media as much, or just minimal, right? I am barely on my phone. I just got a dog recently, so I got something that distracts me. So the point is, like, whether it is like maybe knitting or just something that doesn't, or music, something as simple as music, listening to something nice that gets you excited. And it's hard because on top of these human rights violations, there's also a pandemic going on, right? So checking in with yourself. We don't need to be martyrs, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we need to tap into our resources and tap into our support, and get the job further.
Yeah, because I think, like, for a lot of people, when you're like, okay, well, I want to volunteer or I want to participate in activism, but like, what can one person really do? It's good to keep in mind that one person can't change the world by themselves. It's about having a community and knowing that collectively those positive actions can affect change. Right?
Yeah, 100%. And then I keep thinking about, and I don't know much about track, but I do see like those people like running and then they pass the baton and then they go to like the next level. It's the same thing, like with any team, like at the end of the day, like even with our youth groups, when we have them start a new club or a new group, we tell them, do you have 2 or 3 other people that can start it with you? Because this is a lot of work for one person.
Yeah.
And then you build from that, but you cannot do it by yourself at all.
Yeah. And that's why we're going to have a couple more resource slides for you guys at the end that will show, for example, like ways to get involved with Amnesty International. And then there's also a great training that I just took was through Holla Back. Have you heard of that one, Angelina?
No.
Recently had some trainings on what to do for street harassment, as well as addressing a lot of the anti-Asian crimes that we've been seeing lately. So they have a lot of great trainings on those, completely free. You know, you can sign up. So we're going to link to that and a few other things for you
That's
guys.
awesome. Yeah. Again, it just, guys, just tap into these resources. They're here because we were able to like assess the needs of activists. We know how, or just anyone in general that just want to get started or just wants to learn more. These are important tools that will help further the work that you're trying to do. So definitely tap into them.
Well, we hope this program has been helpful for all of you and given you a place to start. We also want to thank Angelina and Amnesty International for a phenomenal talk. If you want to see more content like this, you can visit Gwinnett County Public Library's YouTube channel or visit our website at gwinnettpl.org.